Lance Armstrong was stripped of his Tour de France wins when it was found he'd used EPO, a protein hormone that boosts the body's oxygen-carrying red blood cells. American baseball stars Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens were found to have used steroids to improve their performance. What should we think of athletes who use performance-enhancing drugs? Now, in the examples I just gave, a lot was wrong. The substances were explicitly banned. Those playing by the rules found it almost impossible to win. Then there were the added wrongs of lying and secrecy to cover up the cheating. Those players certainly betrayed the trust of fans, not to mention served as really lousy role models. But here's a different question. In this segment, we're going to take a step back. Should performance-enhancing drugs be banned? And if so, why? So again, conditional on a drug being banned for use in a sport, athletes are wrong to use it. But how do we know when we should ban something? Some think it should be all biological enhancements, or should it just be some or none? Well, to some, the approach should be obvious. All biological enhancements give players an unnatural advantage. What we admire in athletics is somebody taking their natural talents, adding hard work and grit, and seeing what they can achieve. Biological enhancements are shortcuts, like the woman in the United States who ran the Boston Marathon in 1980 and was declared victorious, but turned out to have taken the subway part of the way. But the idea of banning all biological enhancement seems hasty. I mean, for one thing, athletes pursue a lot of things that enhance their bodies. In this sense, coaches, high-tech equipment, training regimes, protein supplements, high-altitude training, all of these are enhancements. And more than that, the idea of a natural talent is worth pausing on. So quite apart from questions about how much of one's talent is inborn rather than developed, that nature-nurture question, some of the components of skills are really brute biological facts, like how many fast twitch muscle fibers you have and how many red blood cells your body naturally produces. And it's not clear why this would be a point of admiration. And if it is, why not admire how well one person's body responds to EPO? And if effort is one of the things we most admire, well, then most performance-enhancing drugs are actually the opposite of a shortcut. Steroids, for instance, work by letting athletes recover more quickly from strenuous workouts and practices so that they can work yet harder. It doesn't magically add muscle any more than it magically makes anyone better at strategy or hand-eye coordination or the other skills you still need to work at. So if we're interested in biological enhancements with sports, we need to go deeper. So let's talk about two things that are of absolutely central importance. First, safety. So the performance enhancers I've mentioned are all incredibly dangerous. Steroids carry risk of heart attacks, liver damage, extreme mood swings. Often their worst effects show up long after use has stopped. Human growth hormone carries risks of osteoporosis, diabetes, cardiomyopathy. EPO can raise one's hematocrit, those oxygen-carrying blood cells, to dangerously high levels. Well, is that a reason to ban their use, though? So some have argued this would actually be paternalistic. Athletes should just be given information and decide for themselves what trade-offs they would make. Well, one question is obviously how well athletes would really appreciate the long-term risks here. But another philosophically important issue is about the sort of arms race aspect here. So say that Malaika is a soccer player who uses steroids and loves the sense of power they give her. Camilla would never want to use steroids. But if Malaika is using them, it's the only way Camilla can now compete. And once she starts, Malaika has to use yet more to achieve and recover a comparative advantage, and the arms race is off. Both would be better off and might prefer that the option be off the table. Sometimes adding more choice makes us worse off. Okay, so safety is one key factor, but is it the only one? What if we had a new biological enhancement with low side effects, low risks? Does that mean anything goes? Well, the answer is no, because the enhancement might be something that undermines what we call the telos of a given sport. Okay, so telos, recall, is the end or purpose at which something aims. Now, players may aim at simply winning, but when we're talking about the telos of the sport itself, what we mean is something like the excellences that define the game, the specific forms of excellence that a given sport is designed to challenge and test. So take a simple example. Why do we allow runners to wear shoes? Well, because in track and field, the challenge is to see how fast they can go, not how durable the soles of their feet are. I mean, you could have a sport testing this, walking on hot coals, going barefoot over sharp stones as fast as you could, but it would be a very different activity. To the extent that track and field is interested in speed and endurance, shoes are an acceptable enhancement. So sometimes it's not clear which excellences are defining of the game or activity, and that means we're not clear about which enhancements are okay. Take the example of beta blockers. So these are drugs that block the autonomic responses that some people get with stage fright. So adrenaline comes and makes their heartbeat race, makes them nauseous, and critically gives them trembling hands. So it's a prescription drug that doctors often prescribe, for instance, to concert pianists and considered safe for that use. Well, should we allow its use in, say, the biathlon? You know, that sport where you cross-country ski like crazy and then try to shoot a rifle at a distant bullseye? Well, it depends. The question is, what's the telos of that sport? Is the key excellence we're trying to judge the ability to race with skis and then shoot accurately while your heart rate is going crazy? Or is it just about judging people on how much endurance they have and then how much accuracy they have? Seeing what we can do to push the limits of the human body has always been part of sports. The bioethics question is which limits should be pushed and which left standing. And this issue is, for some, about how natural something is, but certainly centrally about questions of safety, and again, the forms of excellence the sport is designed to celebrate.